Alrighty. Welcome back to the Net to Net podcast. I'm your host Sam Kelty, and this is something new that I'm trying on our podcast. I know you guys have been listening to our soccer and to our basketball podcast when we've been uploading basketball. Right now, we're not doing any basketball, but we are doing soccer due to this being soccer season. But now, since NFL and college football are back, I now want to start with kind of doing some American football since these sports are now back in season. So this is our first episode of our NCAA college football podcast on the Net to Net podcast. So I just want to start out first of all just saying I hope you guys enjoy this episode because it's going to be exciting. So now let's dive into some college football. So first of all, I want to start with is the talk about the games that happened earlier in the day. Let's start with Ohio State Youngstown. So Ohio State Youngstown, pretty easy win for Ohio State, 135-7. They started off very slow. After they scored their first touchdown, it was about 71-yard go route to Marvin Harrison, which Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison played together in high school. They have that connection. So I'm expecting a lot of great things. And I know a lot of Ohio State fans were not happy with the way the game went last week against Indiana. And it is kind of hard to go on the road against a conference opponent as your first game. And Ohio State has a new quarterback and Kyle McCord. They have Devin Brown who got snaps last game. I believe this game he played a little, but last game they were slow. Their defense looked good. Last game, pretty much the defense kind of held their own, and they look better, especially in their second year with their new defensive coordinator who came over from Oklahoma State, sorry. And they looked a lot better with how they've done over their first year from going from a different defensive coordinator to Jim Knowles, who came over from, like I mentioned, Oklahoma State beforehand. And he's a really good defensive coach, knows what he's doing. And then Brian Hartline, you have arguably, to be honest, you probably have one of the best wide receiver duos in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Mbekambu, and then Julian Fleming, so 1, 2, 3. And then you have probably one of the best running back duos in the country in Mayan Williams and Trayvon Henderson, who pretty much, if your offense isn't working, throwing the ball to your boy, to like Marvin Harrison, Emeka, and then Kate Stuver, then you have that 1-2 punch on the ground to run the ball. And running the ball with those two, you can just interchange them, and they work really well. But that going said, they look good again. Once after Youngstown tied it up 7-7, then Ohio State pretty much kind of ran away with it towards the end of the first half, and then after that, pretty much the game was over. Trayvon Henderson had 2 touchdowns for about, I believe he had 5 rushes for 56 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mayan Williams had 25 yards on 6 carries. Marvin Harrison put in 2 touchdowns for a 160, and then Mbekambu had 95 and a touchdown. Kyle McCord, 14 of 20, about 200 and almost 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So that was pretty good. He looked better this game. He looked more comfortable. I think I think the nerves got to him. I think his first game as a starter, I think Ryan Day found his starter, which is kind of nice. I think Kyle McCourt's going to be the starter going forward. And if we forget that JT Barrett, once about 2014, JT Barrett started once Braxton Miller went down with that injury in the beginning of the season, and JT Barrett started off slow. And by no means am I comparing this Ohio State team to that 2014 team, but I'm just saying you're seeing the same kind of vibes from when JT Barrett started off slow to Kyle McCourt starting off slow, and then they went on their run in 2014 and won the national championship. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship this year. I think there's better teams to win the national championship, but it's just you're similar vibes. And people are saying, "Oh, Ryan Day, look bad. He should get fired, and we need a new coach." You forget Ryan Day has a 46-6 record, a 32-2 conference record. Only losses in the conference is to Michigan. He's 2-3 in bowl games, and if you look at it, his recruiting has been in the top 5, top 10 since he's taken over in 2019. They've had a boatload of ESPN 300s. They've had double-digit numbers from about 2020 to 2024, and they're still going. So you're looking at it, and Ryan Day is one of the best offensive-minded coaches, and probably in college football, and probably one of the best coaches in college football, other than the likes of Nick Saban, and you have Jimbo Fisher, Dabo Swinney, and all of them. He's up there with them, with one of the best coaches in college football. So I don't think that you need to hit the panic button just yet. There's some teams I will be talking about that should be hitting the panic button soon. But yeah, so Ohio State, I think they're going to come into their own. You just got to give it time. It's a new team. They lost a lot of people. They lost a few of their offensive line from last year. They lost Jackson and Jaba. And they lost some defensive players, but they still have a really good defensive team. They look pretty good. You got Tommy Eichenberg still. You got Steel Chambers kind of doing the linebacker, running the linebacking group. Jack Sawyer with TJ Tuamalu on the rushing the quarterback. So you have a good team. I know Josh Proctor was a little banged up, so he didn't really play much, but you still have Latham Ransom still on the back end. You have Hicks, Denzel Burke. You're fine with your defense. It's just getting your offense into that groove. But they ended up winning 35-7, like I mentioned. Okay, and then now going to the other game that was this morning, 9 o'clock on the West Coast for me, Colorado, Nebraska. Colorado goes in Prime's home debut. Shadori Sanders has an unbelievable game. He did really well. He threw about almost 400 yards, 2 scores while running in another. So he had three altogether. But this Colorado team looks like they're coming to play. And under Prime, Deion Sanders, Prime's leadership, his coaching, you got some boys, you got some dogs that can play. Shadori Sanders, he's the coach's son, but he's looking like a Heisman candidate right now. He's on the Heisman watch, and then you have probably one of the best athletes in Travis Hunter. He can play both sides of the ball. He didn't. He he plays both sides of the ball. He had about 73 yards on 3 receptions. No score today, but the real guy today, who was their main guy, was Xavier Weavers, who caught 10 receptions on 12 targets for 170 yards and 1 touchdown. Looked pretty good. Other than all, Colorado looks like a dog. Their defense was the story today. Last week it was the offense, but today was the defense. The defense, ooh, they look good. They had a bunch of takeaways. I believe they had 1 interception, a couple sacks. They scored 14 points off their turnovers, which is pretty good. You see from their team, it's just amazing. They forced turnovers. Colorado, they're ranked 22nd, but they keep climbing. They keep winning. Next week, they play Colorado State, I believe, in Boulder. Yeah, Colorado State. So at 7 o'clock next week. So that's going to be a good game for them. Rivalry, Colorado. But yeah, it's I think big things from them. The next big game that we have to mention is Georgia. Georgia played Ball State. Pretty much Georgia won 45-3. Georgia is number one team in the country. That's why they are number one for doing that. But actually a big game that was probably a lot closer than we thought was Utah and Baylor. So you have Cameron Rising, who was Utah's quarterback last year, didn't play. Hasn't played yet due to he tore his ACL towards the end of the season, which we haven't really. He hasn't played yet, so he's not ready to come back. So they had quarterback Bryson Barnes start. He started last game against the Gators. He had 170 and 2 touchdowns. He had another opportunity today. He this didn't really look good against this Baylor defense that was honestly really good. They're a very good defensive football team. Offense wasn't really there for Baylor, but it ended 20-13, which can go. You can look at it as like, yeah, Utah doesn't look full strength yet due to the fact they don't have Cameron Rising yet, but they did lose a lot. They did lose a few weapons in Brenton Covey last year. They lost Dalton Kincaid. So they've lost a few key guys that were there last year. But honestly, Utah is going to be a force to reckon with within the last year of the Pac-12. And then the last notable game that happened, last two notable games that happened today were Notre Dame beating NC State with that delay due to the weather. Number 10 Notre Dame goes in and beats NC State 45-24. Sam Hartman's on fire still. The transfer from Wake Forest, probably one of the best pickups in the transfer portal. 4 touchdowns today, which adds to his 7 already on the season. So that's pretty impressive. He was averaging 11.1 yards before the NC State game. He threw for 286, and then Estime, another good game, 2 touchdowns. He's been rocking and rolling over the last 2 games. Against the last 3 games, against Navy, he scored with 95 yards. Last week against Tennessee State, he had $116, 1 touchdown. This week, 134 and 2 touchdowns. So that's pretty good. Estime, one of my favorite running backs in this college football season. That's fun to watch. And then that all-around team, Notre Dame, they're going to be good. And then Clemson had a bounce back game. I know they played Charleston Southern from the Big South OVC conference. Not the team they should beat big time. But going into the second quarter, it was tied 14-14, and then Clemson erupted in the second half and scored 28 unanswered in the third to win 66-17. So good bounce back. Yeah, it's not against a good team, but it definitely builds your confidence back up, especially for a team that has been to the national championship over the last few years. In Dabo Sweeney's era, the people were saying the dynasty's over, which they thought that DJ Ngolele, who transferred to Oregon State this year, was going to be the answer for after Trevor Lawrence, which wasn't the case. And then they have Cade Kubak, Kluppin, who took over for DJ last year, and he looked bad last week, but he had a bounce back week this game. Currently, the games going on right now that are notable mention, you have Michigan beating UNLV 35-0, which is expected for them right now. They're gonna win, and then probably the game that's more interesting is Tulane versus Ole Miss, number 24 Tulane and number 20 Ole Miss. are playing right now. They're tied 17-17. Jackson Dart, the transfer from USC, is playing for Ole Miss. Not too bad right now. Definitely could do better. But Tulane, playing with Kai Horton as their starting quarterback, who actually their starting quarterback, Pratt, the Michael Pratt, one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year, who threw for 4 touchdowns last week in the win over South Alabama, is injured. He was a game time decision. They went with Kai Horton, the redshirt sophomore, who hasn't looked too bad. I know they're missing Michael Pratt. He had that knee injury in the opener last week. Hopefully he's back in time because Tulane could be a force to reckon with if Pratt's healthy. And then we're gonna preview to a few games tonight. We have let's start with the Texas Alabama game. It's Quinn Ewers versus Jalen Milrose. You saw Alabama win their game last week, and you saw Texas win theirs as well. We saw some good things for Texas. I didn't think honestly didn't think Texas was going to be that great. With losing Bijan Robinson, probably one of their best players last year. But Quinn Ewers looks like the quarterback they've needed. And just to think, Texas could have beat Bama last year if Quinn Ewers didn't go down in the first quarter. They were looking good, and then once he went down, Bama kind of just picked it up. Bama has some interesting things. A couple of injuries in their defensive side with Jalen Keys and Malachi Moore. I know Malachi Moore, I believe, is a game time decision with Jalen Keys supposed to be playing. So hopefully they have those guys back, because if they don't have them for this game, it's a big loss for them, which hopefully they can bounce back from. But I'm gonna take Bama. I think Bama wins this, but I think it's gonna be close just because this Texas team is pretty good. And with Steve Kerr's season coming back, he won the national championship with Bama, so it's extra fire for Texas. But I just think Bama is just still one of the top dogs in this college football season. The next game that we can look forward to is one of the Heisman favorites, Caleb Williams, having an unbelievable season. He has 9 touchdowns for about 597 yards going into the Stanford game. Unbelievable. Probably going to be the first overall pick if he does decide to declare himself for the draft next year. USC is probably going to kill Stanford. It's a good rivalry. We always like to see USC versus Stanford, which is a great rivalry. And then the next game we have is the Oregon-Texas Tech game. Bo Nix coming off that really good game. I believe he was 21-27 against Portland State. Yes, it's Portland State, so they were obviously the favorites, but Bo Nix, 21 for 27, 3 touchdowns. I think he had like over 300 yards. Pretty good. He is, I believe, ranked 8th in the Heisman Watch, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. But pretty good. I think Oregon shouldn't struggle against Texas Tech, but you never know. It's at Texas Tech, on the road. But Dan Lanning in his second season, our defense looks good, our offense looks good. Troy Franklin looks like the same where they picked off last year with Bo Nix and Troy Franklin picking off where they left off, which looks nice because Troy Franklin sometimes kind of disappeared in certain situations. Gary Bryant, the transfer we got, looks pretty good. He came over from USC, I believe, who has been one of Bo Nix's favorite targets. And then our running backs, I just love our running backs. Bucky Irving, elusive back. Jordan James, elusive back. So we have some really good running backs, which I'm happy that we have. Oregon always produces those running backs. My main thing was defensive-wise, because we lost Bennett Williams, who was a leader on our defensive side. We lost DJ Johnson, who was a leader on our defense. We lost Noah Sewell, the leader at linebacker, our quarterback of our defense, which I was hesitant on our defense being good this year, but we brought in Jordan Birch from South Carolina, who's pretty good. We still have Dante Manning. We have Jeremy Bossy. We still have Braylon Addison. We still have Brandon Dorless. So we have a good defense, and I think Oregon wins this game. So I'm just gonna say it's close, but I don't think it's gonna be a blowout like we think. Right now, Texas A&M is currently losing to Miami, the number 23 team in the country. Texas A&M. Miami looks pretty good. They have really strong defense with Mario Cristobal, who's a defense-minded coach. So it'd be interesting to see who wins that. And then to end the games, the previewing that I haven't played yet is my alma mater, Cincinnati Bearcats. They play at 6:30 on the West Coast against Pittsburgh, which Cincinnati played Eastern Kentucky 166-13. Not too. If we lost that game, it would have looked really bad for us. But Emory Jones, great pickup in transfer portal. He went 19 of 23 last game for 5 touchdowns, throwing and then running for 2, which was pretty good. Our offense looked really good. Xavier Henderson, the transfer, a great pickup from Florida last year. 149 yards for a touchdown. We had also had Braden Smith chipping a touchdown. Prater switching Evan Prater, who was our quarterback, was supposed to be our quarterback of the future, switched to receiver, which is nice because his big size and frame looks good for a receiver. Defense looked good. We have the Godfather, Corleone, who is a beast in the run game. Dante Corleone, beast in the run game, run stopper. We still have Deshaun Pace taking that leadership role of the defense that his brother Ivan, who's on the bigger and better things in the NFL for the Vikings, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But all in all, I think the defense played well, the offense played well, and I think Pittsburgh's going to be a good test because it's a good ACC team. So it's going to be fun to watch those boys play tonight, which I'm very excited. So those are kind of like what the previews to the games and like kind of my reactions to what games have happened so far. And there's so many more games, but that is just kind of looking at the top 25. Probably the most notable game outside the top 25 would be the either is the Iowa State Iowa rivalry. Iowa's up 20-3. So going into it's in the third quarter, about to go into the fourth, so they're up right now. And then tonight, like I said, the big game is Texas versus Alabama, and then you have Wisconsin versus Washington State, which should be a good game. Both good teams. Luke Fickell, former coach of UC, coaching at Wisconsin, so it's first home game, so it should be interesting to see. So I'm going to be very excited to watch some college football. We've been looking forward to it for a while. And then now kind of shifting to my last segment with college football is the Heisman Watch. So after the first week, not counting last week, or not counting this week, sorry. Here are my rankings for the Heisman through just watching the first watching this week, watching last week. Number 1, Caleb Williams. He has 9 touchdowns. Like I said, 597 yards. He's a favorite. He won it last year. Unbelievable quarterback. About 73.5 completion rate. Very good on running with his feet. My next one has to be Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis looked pretty. He started off slow against LSU, but then got the job done. He had 5 touchdowns. He looked very good against LSU. LSU, the number 5 team in the country. Jordan Travis comes in and beats them. Looked very good. He has 342 yards on a 74 completion with a 94.7 QBR rating. So that's really good. Number 3, I would have to go Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman, 7 touchdowns. I know going into the NC State game, he missed only like 7 incompletions, which is insane. and now he added four. I believe I think I mentioned 4 touchdowns today, which is unbelievable. For his 7 already. I think Sam, the transfer to Notre Dame, great move. Number 5, I have to go with Michael Penix Jr. at Washington. He had 5 touchdowns going into this week against Tulsa. I believe he has 1 right now against Tulsa. Very, very good at running the ball with and scrambling, getting out of the pocket, avoiding, going through his progressions. If he can just make those simple, not make those simple mistakes that he made last year and a little bit this year that we've seen, overthrowing receivers, not hitting his progressions correctly. When he can just dump it off to someone in the flat and he tries to make that harder in coverage pass, which sometimes works out for him, but sometimes doesn't. And then I would say to round off it, I believe this is number 6, Shador Sanders, 7 touchdowns, and then you add 2 more passing, 1 more running to his total after this game. Unbelievable, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He was 38 of 47 against Colorado. Looked very good. And then to round up the last one, Bo Nix. Bo Nix, 3 touchdowns last week for about almost 300 yards, 85.2 completion because he was 21 of 7 last game, and 88.9 QBR rating. I think he's a dark horse for this Heisman running. Outside, because the Heisman race is usually a quarterback's trophy. Outside of it, I would have said going into the season, Marvin Harrison Jr. is up there. He started off slow last game. He didn't have a touchdown, but this week he might creep back into it. And then you have Blake Corma, 73 rushing yards, 1 touchdown against you last week, and now I believe right now he has against UNLV he has 80 yards for 3 touchdowns to add to his 1 already, so he has 4 on the season, and they're winning 35-0. Blake Cormier might be one of the best running backs in the country. I would slightly give it to Travion Henderson, who could be the best running back in the country, which he was really highly talented outside when he came into college, which I think big things from it. And then you still have Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin, who I think is up there. I think between him, Braylon Allen, Blake Corman, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, and Estime out of Notre Dame, I think are some of the best running backs in this country. So that was kind of my recap of this week's college football. I know there's some more games being played. I'll probably be coming out with a recap of this whole entire week's more in depth soon, and then previewing next week's games, which I look forward to college football every year. I love watching my alma mater, Cincinnati Bearcats, go out there and play every day, and then watching my team that I've loved since probably fifth and sixth grade, Oregon, go out and play every day. So I hope you guys enjoyed this college football. I know it's only 30 minutes. I kind of wanted to keep it short for my first episode alone. So be sure to check out our soccer podcast that will be releasing soon for this week. Once NBA starts coming closer to the season, we'll probably pick that up. And then be sure to be on the lookout for my NFL podcast previews going into tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon, and like and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, and like us on Instagram and Twitter, and just turn on your notifications. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.